Humans of the cardboard, welcome back to Just Nuts, guys. Today, we need to talk about this upcoming card because it is crazy. It is right around the corner. We are less than a month away from this card actually dropping, like right around exactly 4 weeks, which is going to come up very quickly, trust me. And this card's really quite good. It's a new Sprite card. We already have like all the insane Sprite cards we got from Power of the Elements, but they bring one more specific card that is like insane. It's a new Link monster. It's Sprite Sprint. Who would have thought Links would still be crazy? Me. They're the most insane extract mechanic, for sure. But yeah, long story short, here we go. This is Sprite Sprint. He points up and to the right. He points down and to the left. 1400 attack, thunder, fire. He takes any two monsters, including a level, rank, or link 2 monster. So he is very, very easy to make. He cannot be used as link material the turn he's link summoned, so that does make him a little more fair, so you can't link climb with him. You can only use one of his falling effects once per turn, and only once that turn. Again, another element of fairness to him, but you'll see. So you just can't do both of his effects in the same turn. Still solid. If this card is link summoned, you can send one level 2 monster from your deck to the graveyard. Broken. You'll see. We're going to go through all the options of like what the best stuff to send off of him is. His secondary effect says if any other monster is special summoned while this card is on the field, except during the damage step, you can detach a material from your monster to target a monster on the field and return it to the hand. That's really, really good. He detaches a material from any other Exceed monster you control, so you just literally need to summon him. You'll summon him to send something on your turn to get like your engine going, and then as long as you end on any Exceed monster with a material still, this guy is just a compulse when a monster is summoned. Boom. Extra engine extender while also being an interruption on the opponent's turn. This card is phenomenal, even though it has 2 pretty fair restrictions. Its 2 effects are like both really, really good for what they need to do, and it's a really, really strong card. So now that we have that, let's run through the options that I think will matter the most when it comes to this card and Sprite build. So the first one is Nimble Angler. This has to be the first card we talk about here. This card reads, if it's sent from the hand or deck to the graveyard, you can special summon up to 2 level 3 or lower Nimble monsters straight from your deck. And you're like, John, I don't want to play this card plus Nimble bricks. Oh, that's right. Beaver. So like if you don't know right now, like most people discuss as far as generic, like 1 card rank 2, 1 card link 2, level 2 starters for the deck, normal summons for the deck, it's either Beaver or it's Diva. If you play like a build that goes through Hulk often, you'll play Diva, but if not and you want more consistency, especially in grindier matches where you end up needing multiple normal summons throughout the duel, Beaver is just better. So in this build, when Sprint comes out, I don't see why you would even try to even convince yourself that Diva is better than Beaver anyway. So you'd probably be playing 3 Beaver, which means you could have still normal summoned Beaver to get to Sprint, and then send an Angler to summon the other 2 copies of Beaver straight out of the deck if you wanted, and that would work. Just gives you like 2 more level 2 bodies out of the deck. Absolutely insane. Extension, that has to be the most important one to look at. I think this will be very, very popular. Just 1 copy of Angler, 3 copies of Beaver, and it'll let you go rampant playing through interruptions. Next up, you have the Frog package. You also have to look at this because if you had any way, maybe you like bricked on the Ronin and you just drew the Ronin, but you drew any extender. But let's say it's like a bad hand. So the only 2 engine cards you drew were like Ronin plus a red or a carrot or a Pixies, right? Like not the good extenders. Or maybe you opened blue or jet, but they got impermed, they got ashed, whatever. And you're able to just immediately make Sprint, sending the Swap Frog so that Ronin now has material to like come back. And that kind of like helps you extend from there. So I could see a scenario where sending another swap or the Ronin from your deck to the graveyard in a situation where maybe you got hand trapped on a swap or something earlier in the turn could still come up and allow you to make Toad through interruption. Just kind of depends though. Next up we have Tearlaments Synergy. This to me is also another one that kind of goes with Nimble Angler. Like sending the frogs are nice because they just want to be engraved. Angler's insane because it just like triggers and gets you 2 bodies of the exact level your deck wants to summon. But Merly kind of fits that same mold as well. This card is level 2 for tier. When it hits the graveyard by card effect, it's going to let you do a fusion summon immediately. And so what Sprite Sprint becomes is now a generic option that as long as you put any level, rank, or link 2 monster monster on the field and get into Sprint with it, he's going to let you play through Interruption really, really well and guarantee yourself more fusion summons through Interruption. And that's really, really strong. I think he kind of becomes... he almost fills that role of like kind of how we talk about Verte Anaconda when he was still in rotation, how like, oh, all my plays got stopped, but I just have 2 monsters on the field. Let me just make Verte, and I'll still end on a DP and just grind you out of the duel anyway, because you threw multiple hand traps at me, and I'll just grind you out. This is kind of how this feels in an essence of as far as being like a backup plan, right? My whole play got stopped, everything's been shut down, but I do have 2 bodies, and one of them is either a Link 2, a Rank 2, or a Level 2, and now I just get to go make Sprite Sprint, send Merly, and go ahead and Fusion Summon. Which could get you to just a straight up Interruption, which could get you to Garura to link up again and get yourself like another draw and like just kind of get the resource game rolling even further. Maybe it's just you haven't made Kitt Chalice yet because your opponent kind of kept you off of it with the Crows and Interruptions like that on Tearlaments triggering Engrave, and that finally resolves and that gets you a ton of resources. It really depends, but it does definitely open up the deck for extra extension through Interruption really well. I would not be surprised if we see like generic level 2 extenders played in the deck just for that sole purpose, to just send Merly whenever you need it, which is really, really nice. I think we'll really see that card played in tier very, very often. Kind of a fringe one. I think this is the last one as far as archetypes are concerned. There's not a ton of level 2 monsters that just being sent to grave like kind of gives you something decent. But I do think Lee, the World Chalice Fairy, is one of those, because her effect in Grave is that you can send any monster from your hand or field to Grave to add herself back to your hand. So if somehow you're able to make Sprite Sprint without your normal summon, or in a way that gives you the ability to get an additional normal summon, or the way World Chalice sometimes works is if you use like Lee to send one of the Link monsters from the field to the grave, to get add herself back to hand, she'd be able to, or the Link monster in grave would trigger to summon a World Chalice monster from the hand. That would just be her, and that kind of gets her out, and then she searches you again. There are ways to definitely like make some really cool plays, but the idea would be, oh, if I didn't even open like my actual engine, but without my normal summon, I had just extenders to get into Sprint. Boom, Sprint send Fairy. Fairy sends something else to get herself back to hand, and I have a normal summon. So now I will normal summon Lee, and then I kind of just go from there, and hopefully get some extension plays going from there. I actually want to go ahead and look at a World Chalice Sprite build. I do think there could be something interesting with that. Between Lee, between the Shine Balls, and the fact that you'd probably we definitely want to play Venus in the deck to get out Shine Balls. There definitely could be some really cool stuff going on there. But obviously I'll have to look a little bit deeper on that to see like really how much it's worth. But still really cool ideas going on there. Yeah, so Lee's really cool. Next up, for some generic options, you've got Plague Spreader Zombie. There's definitely a world where like there could be plays where there's like maybe you don't need Angler. I'm assuming most times you need Angler, but also if you're still on a Synchro build, being able to send Plague Spreader and then Plague Spreader itself back, have any extension, get into a Hulk play, and keep going. There definitely could be some builds that kind of focus on that. So Plague Spreader just being a generically great level 2 extender when it's in grave is definitely really nice for Sprint. Another kind of under the radar one is Ret Time, a Reviver Emitter. It's a really cool card. If this card's in hand or grave, it can target a face-up monster on each field. It flips them both face down and then summons itself. But it banishes itself the next time it leaves the field, so you might want to use it as an Exceed material if you want, but it is still an extender, it is still a tuner, and it does flip an opponent's monster face down. The one thing I'd say about this card is if we're talking about like simplified board states and you just make Sprint, this card cannot come back because Sprint is a Link monster. Cannot be flipped face down, so this card needs to flip one of your own monsters down to get itself back onto the field. So like there could be niche situations where it still comes up, but those definitely need to come up. So for it to be worth it, and if they don't, it may not be worth it. But it is still an interesting card that I thought was worth noting. And the last card here is Volcanic Scattershot. We already see people playing Red Resonator in their Sprite builds because it gives them a way to burn. Actually, I don't think it burns. I think it raises your own life points in time. Kind of same idea here. If you just make Sprint, Foolish Burial this card, and this card says, if this card is sent to the graveyard, inflict 500 to your opponent. even easier potentially than resolving the Exceed one. So this card, I don't know, could come up. I don't know. Maybe it's just another option. It's still a level 2. You just add it to the, as a one of in the side deck. That way, if you know you're going into time, it gives you a way to just win outright in time. I don't know, but it's definitely something to keep an eye on for sure. But yeah, that's pretty much it. This card's really, really cool. This card's insanely powerful. I like it. I mean, like, I don't hate Sprite. I personally don't feel like Sprite is so overwhelming that even as a rogue player, I find myself just like completely outclassed. I think it's able to, like, you're able to play with it normally. But this card is really interesting to me because I think one of the things is that Sprite is super linear. It does have ways to play through Interruption at times, but sometimes they just don't. And this card does just kind of facilitate that even more. I mean, just imagine everything you do to Sprite right now to kind of get them to end on a mediocre board, and then they just make Sprint, send Angler, get 2 more level 2s straight out of the deck, right? And that kind of like just makes their board like immediately better, immediately more scary, and just makes them right out the gate of this set like immediately better at playing through Interruption, which is a little bit scary. But I don't know if it's enough to really make them like completely out of reach of like any rogue deck, because that's really what I care about is like, I don't care if the best decks are the best decks. I just care when the best decks are so stupid good that like every other deck can't even touch them. And right now I feel like they're touchable. We just, I get worried with the support coming, because this card not only helps Sprite, we already talked about Merly, so like it helps Tier as well play through Interruption, so it makes me a little bit nervous there. But we'll obviously have to see. I do think because they're waiting so long on this ban list, I do think there is a world where they do hit something from Tier and Sprite. Maybe if it's not direct, it hits like other stuff they're playing. We'll see though, obviously. So kind of weird, just kind of a discussion video generically about Sprint. Wanted to hear your guys' thoughts on this as well. So let me know in the comment section down below. Are there any other cards that are worth mentioning as it pertains to Sprint specifically, and what he can send as like extra targets that could give you some good value, as well as just your general thoughts about this card. Does it make Sprite too broken? Does it make Tier too broken? I'm definitely curious to hear what you guys are thinking. So I'm out of here for today. Thank you so much for watching as always, guys. Subscribe to the channel if you have not yet and you want to see more stuff from your boy down the line. And peace. I'm out of here.